talk is about performance testing in Waving World. Who of you have read the book Waving World? Aldous Huxley. 1, 2. And these are American, European, so get the book. It gets frightening. Okay, short thing. My name is Mieke Gievers. I'm from Belgium. I'm a computer science engineer and slipped into testing, like many of you. And after the decades passed by, I specialized in test automation and primarily in performance testing and monitoring. So these are my key areas where I look at. So what I'm going to talk about is not my biography. It's about performance testing, how it was in the past, how it's now, and how we think it's going to be in the future. And then some conclusions. So, performance testing in Waving World. If you see the evolution, I don't know if you heard about Charlie Chaplin. Well, I think this is the first person ever put on video or film that did some testing. And not only testing, but also performance testing. Usability testing. Functional testing. I think they invented it all the way back in the year 1916. 36, sorry. Good of him, wasn't it? Quite good engineering. First automation. Eat some popcorn. See, it works. There goes the performance. And everything goes up. So, do you agree? This is a performance testing, or testing at all stages from the beginning of 1936. Now, let's see what the evolution goes. I'm in the era of V-model. Who knows not about the V-model? I'm good. Okay, so in that period of time, everything is structured. Creating the design of an application takes 2 years' time. Writing the application takes another 3 years' time, where performance testing comes in the end, when everything has been conceived. Now we're talking about Agile. Agile, the new era, everything goes fast, and we have sprints, sprint planning, and so on. Now, performance testing on itself is agile, because we have to be very flexible, very ad hoc. But is performance testing in an agile process, is that's working. We're going to see this a little bit later. Now, agile is there, but there's also DevOps. DevOps means we're not showing the software anymore over the bench or over the fence, like in used to do, but we work together with development and the operations. So then if you see in performance testing, there's a difference between performance testing in pre-production and performance testing in production. In production, it's been called monitoring. In fact, it's the same thing, but you compare apples with apples as much as possible. Now, when you go into DevOps, there's a culture change. You have to work together with operation, with the developers, with the whole team. Also for design of the database administrator, your third parties, everything comes together. Automation is becoming very crucial because you cannot do this on your own all the time. Measurements. Talk about measurements. You have to see how to produce documentation in order to get the right decision. So you have to go and talk to everybody in the chain, in the food chain, on your organization, to see what do they need in order to make the right decision. So one small example is for the database administrator. I talk to the database administrator and say, what do you need for you to be able to come with the right data for making the decision that you need to make? We can invent everything. I can bring a lot of data inside, but if it's unuseful for the person who needs to make the decision, it has no point. So talk to the persons inside. And of course, everything needs to be shared by everybody and be transparent. Now, studies regarding performance testing or the evolution of the testing on its own is like Capgemini, Suggestion, and HP have made the document. They say continuous and automated security testing will be key strategy for the coming years. Agile and DevOps will take the front seat in testing. Predictive analysis will be major enabled to ensure on-time and efficient application delivery. That's the goal. Customer and business assurance will be the focus area. So we're moving the whole testing from pre-production to the whole thing, pre-production and production together. Now, mobile. Just think about mobile. This is according to Gartner. By 2017, 268 billion downloads of mobile apps will be generated. So that's a lot of money. If you're looking then to the trends, McKinsey report, which is a famous organization for creating reports, we're looking now from a move of almost 4 trillion usage of mobile devices to almost 12 billion in roughly 7 years' time. So there's a whole spread of which kind of organization, which kind of departments or structures those is going to be happening. But there's a number that is really frightening. And that's the Internet of Things. Now, don't forget to buy your milk. In Belgium, there is a house called the House of the Future. It's near to Brussels. And it's every 5 years, they tear it down and build a new one. And it's for giving an insight to the future. And about 10 years ago, I went with my family to the House of the Future in Brussels. And they had already the fridge was saying, hey, I'm running out of milk. Or they had a wall where you could, well, the grocery has been commanded also by your menu that you were making for dinner. And they had a wall where from the outside, the grocery could deliver it inside. So just open the lockers and you will get it from the other side. So it was amazing. But there's where we go. Now, studies and trends, big data. Nostradamus, I don't know if you know about him. He's a philosopher of the 16th century. He did a lot of prediction. By the way, he did also predict that Obama is going to be the last president. So I don't know if it's all true, but big data is coming to us. There is Professor Floridi. He's on the European Committee for Big Data, and he gave a presentation about how it's going to all the data be collected, because of course we have privacy issues. Now, privacy issues are very crucial to everybody, but to organize this not only on a country level but also on a global level, everything becomes connected. You would say big data, what has this relationship to performance testing? Well, what does performance testing? You do a synthetic request from an application or to an application to a server using data. For example, a bank application. I'm using my login, my user ID, I have my card, I have my number on side of it. This is a form of data. That data is going to be stored somewhere. Now, if I'm doing performance testing with one user, it's fine. With two users, I cannot use my data again. The system, if it's security well developed, it will say, oh, you're already logged in. You cannot log in twice. So you have to have at least two persons. So just think about it. Having a simulation of performance testing about 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 users, we're talking about very big data. Now the complex the systems are, and the more security has been involved, the more cumbersome we are in creating a whole lot of data that we need to use for doing performance testing. In the end also, what's problematic is the variety of the data, so we have to do a sort of fool the server. If you ask the same thing to Google twice, it will pop up the answer immediately. That means the server already knows, it stores your answer somewhere. So you have to create a certain kind of variety in order to fool the servers, not fool the server, but make the server work and not putting it through this caching or second round. Also is like predictive analysis. Some people say, okay, here you got the result of your performance test. So if I change my server and I upgrade it, and I put X number of CPU to it, and more RAM, and so on and so forth, then of course my performance test will be fine, wouldn't we? Are we in the predictive world? No, I'm not Nostradamus. I cannot tell you, A performance test is a snapshot of that time, of that period, in that constellation, in that settings, not more than that. And please just be aware, don't go into predictions. Now looking into this Internet of Things, if you're looking into what happens every 60 seconds for the moment, just 100,000 tweets, almost 2 million emails sent, and that just in a period of time of a minute. Think about the providers, how much performance they need to be dealing with. For us, there is a good deal. Now, challenges of performance testing in the brave new world is applications become smaller and smaller. It means they try to be more functionality on its own, like components. But components, well, they have APIs, and you have to know to whom they're talking to, what they need, and it becomes very complex because you're talking to third parties. So just think about a bank application or just the functionality of doing the payment. That payment can be used by a bank, but it can be used by Amazon, it can be used by your online store, everywhere. So how are you going to do this in performance testing? You have to think about it. You have to follow all the chain, and it becomes really complex. Like also for web services, you have to look about the why, with who, dealing with the what the thing is doing, how it's working, and in the end, what is the data that's coming out of it? So this is quite a challenge. Now, performance testing, I mentioned before, it is agile on its own. Well, this is performance testing in a very easy way. We have a process, and the process goes very, very simple. And it repeats itself. So we're looking into getting the experimental design, going for test creation, test execution. After that comes the result. By the way, all those slides are online, so don't worry, you can see them. And then we'll do some tuning if needed after the issue has been detected. So this is a really easy